While Sean Combs was acquitted of the most serious charges, he was not declared innocent of all wrongdoing. The jury found him guilty on 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution. These are violations of a federal law known as the Mann Act. This law makes it a crime to knowingly transport someone across state lines for the purpose of prostitution or any other illegal sexual activity. These charges are different from sex trafficking because they do not require the prosecution to prove force, fraud, or coercion. This is a very important distinction that helps explain the split verdict from the jury. The burden of proof for the Mann Act violations was significantly lower. To secure a conviction, prosecutors only needed to prove that prostitution was a significant or motivating purpose for the interstate travel that Combs arranged for the women. The evidence presented during the trial, including testimony about financial arrangements and the nature of the freak-offs, was likely sufficient for the jury to conclude that this standard had been met. It was a much more straightforward charge to prove. The jury could believe that the women were transported for illegal sexual purposes without necessarily believing they were forced or coerced into participating. Because of these convictions, Sean Combs faces serious consequences. Both counts are federal felonies, and he was immediately taken into custody after the verdict, as he had previously been denied bail. His sentencing is scheduled for October 3, 2025. Each count carries a maximum sentence of 10 years in prison. However, under federal sentencing guidelines, prosecutors have estimated that he will likely face a sentence of around 51 to 63 months, which is about 4 to 5 years in prison. He will also receive credit for the 10 months he has already served while awaiting trial. This means that despite being acquitted of the charges that could have sent him to prison for life, Diddy is now a convicted felon who is heading to federal prison. His life of luxury, power, and freedom has come to an abrupt end. The convictions mark a dramatic fall from grace for a man who was once on top of the world. Even a shorter prison sentence will forever change his life and his legacy. The guilty verdicts ensure that he is held legally accountable for some of his actions, even if it's not for the crimes that drew the most public outrage. Immediately following the verdict, many people began drawing comparisons between the Sean Combs case and the infamous O.J. Simpson trial from the 1990s. The parallels are hard to ignore. Both cases involved extremely famous and wealthy black celebrities who were accused of violent crimes. Both men were acquitted of the most serious charges against them: murder in Simpson's case and racketeering and sex trafficking in Combs' case. These acquittals shocked the public and led to widespread debate about whether justice had truly been served. In both trials, the verdict seemed to stand in stark contrast to the mountain of evidence presented to the public. Public perception is another key area where the two cases align. In the court of public opinion, many people still believe O.J. Simpson was guilty of murder, despite his acquittal. Similarly, a large segment of the public is likely to view Sean Combs as guilty of the abuse and trafficking he was accused of, regardless of the jury's verdict. The 2016 assault video, in particular, has cemented a negative image of Combs in the minds of many. Like Simpson, Combs may forever be seen as someone who got away with it, a perception that will likely follow him for the rest of his life and tarnish his legacy permanently. The legal risks that both men faced after their criminal trials also run parallel. After his acquittal, O.J. Simpson lost a civil lawsuit filed by the families of the victims and was found liable for their deaths. He was ordered to pay millions in damages. Sean Combs has already settled the civil suit with Cassie Ventura and is facing over 50 other civil lawsuits. He will likely face immense financial pressure from these ongoing legal battles. Furthermore, like Simpson, who was later convicted and imprisoned for an unrelated robbery and kidnapping, Combs will be under intense scrutiny from law enforcement. The system will be watching him closely, perhaps waiting for him to make a mistake after he is released from prison. However, there is a crucial difference. Unlike O.J. Simpson, who was acquitted of all criminal charges in his first trial, Sean Combs is now a convicted felon. He was found guilty of 2 federal crimes and is going to prison. This legal finding of guilt separates his case from Simpson's in a fundamental way. While the public may debate his innocence on the more serious charges, the fact remains that a jury of his peers found him guilty of criminal behavior. This conviction provides a level of legal accountability that was absent in the Simpson murder trial, even if many feel it doesn't go far enough. When Sean Combs is eventually released from prison, he will re-enter a world that looks very different from the one he left. His reputation has been shattered. The graphic testimony from his trial, his own admission of violence, and the 2 felony convictions have done irreparable damage to his public image. He had already stepped down as the chairman of his media company, Revolt, back in November 2023. It is highly unlikely that he will be able to return to the entertainment and business worlds in the same capacity. Many brands, artists, and business partners will likely distance themselves from him permanently. He is widely expected to be treated as an outcast or a villain in the industries he once dominated. The name Diddy used to be a symbol of success and celebration. Now it is tied to abuse, exploitation, and criminal convictions. It will be incredibly difficult for him to rebuild his brand. While some loyal fans may stick by him, the broader public and the corporate world will probably keep him at arm's length. His days of securing major endorsement deals, launching new product lines, and being celebrated as a cultural icon are almost certainly over. He will have to navigate a world where he is no longer celebrated but is instead viewed with suspicion and disdain. The future for Combs will also be marked by constant scrutiny. Law enforcement will likely monitor him closely, as is often the case with high-profile individuals who have been convicted of felonies. The media will follow his every move, reporting on his life after prison. He will have lost the privacy he once enjoyed. Any misstep, no matter how small, will be magnified and dissected by the public. He will be living under a microscope, a stark contrast to the life of power and influence he once lived, where he was the one in control of the narrative. Ultimately, the man who once called himself Love will have to confront a legacy that is now defined by darkness. His story will serve as a cautionary tale about the abuse of power and the consequences that can follow, even for the most powerful among us. He will have his wealth, but he will have lost his good name. The future for Sean Combs is one of a fallen icon, a man forced to live with the fallout of his actions. His journey ahead will be one of navigating life as a convicted felon and a public pariah, a far cry from the king of hip-hop he once was. The trial of Sean Diddy Combs has come to a close, but the conversation it started is far from over. The split verdict leaves us with a complicated and, for many, unsatisfying conclusion. On one hand, a jury acquitted him of the most heinous charges, finding that the prosecution did not prove its case for racketeering and sex trafficking beyond a reasonable doubt. On the other hand, that same jury convicted him of 2 federal felonies, ensuring that he will face prison time and be forever branded a convicted criminal. This outcome highlights the significant gap that can exist between public perception and the strict technical requirements of the law. For Sean Combs, the man, the verdict marks a definitive and tragic fall from grace. He built an empire and became a symbol of black excellence and entrepreneurial spirit. His story was one of incredible success. But now, that legacy is permanently stained. The disturbing evidence and testimony from the trial have reshaped his public image into one of a predator who used his immense power to exploit and harm people. Regardless of the acquittals, the court of public opinion has largely delivered its own verdict, and it is a harsh one. He will likely spend the rest of his life as an outcast, a shadow of the influential figure he once was. This case also forces society to have important conversations about power, consent, and celebrity culture. It raises questions about how we hold powerful men accountable and how the legal system handles cases involving allegations of sexual abuse. The trial brought to light the dark underbelly of a world that is often glamorized, showing how fame and wealth can be used as tools of control and coercion. The courage of the women who came forward to share their stories has sparked a necessary dialogue that will hopefully lead to greater awareness and change within the entertainment industry and beyond. In the end, the story of Sean Combs is a cautionary tale with no easy answers. It's a story of a flawed hero who became a villain in the eyes of many. It's a story of a legal system that delivered a nuanced verdict that satisfied almost no one completely. And it's a story that reminds us that justice itself is often complex, imperfect, and subject to interpretation. What is certain is that the empire Diddy built has crumbled, and his name will now be remembered not just for the music he made, but for the devastating harm he caused and the legal battle that defined his final act in the public spotlight.